Hello Majors, welcome to today's video, and today, this one has been asked for. I did a video a while back of paper decks, all under $100, competitive standard decks, and I've got another 5 decks for you today, but today they're even more budget. They are under $60, so they all come with a sideboard as well. I am going to showcase the decks on Arena just because it's easier and nicer graphics and everything like that, because one thing you can do before you go in and play, maybe buy these decks on paper, you can give them a try on Arena, see if you like them, see how they play for you if you've got the cards, or maybe just need to craft a couple of wild cards if you do. These aren't Arena budget decks, these are paper budget decks, so they could have more rares in. So just to get that out the way so people do know and come back and say, it has 20 rares and it can't be Arena budget. No, these are paper decks, and I'm just showcasing them on here because this is a, nice fancy program with lovely arts and everything like that. So we're going to go through. All the deck lists will be below, and that will take you to my Mox field. I suggest you give me a follow over there because you can keep up to date with all the decks. I've got so many different types of decks in there. I concentrate mainly on standard, and you see a few of my Commander decks over there for any of you Commander players as well. Now, if you want to get any of these decks in paper, you can get them from the channel sponsors, Cardmarket, if you are in Europe, and you can see the prices below there. At the time of recording, all these decks were under $60. So the first deck we are looking at, and it came in at just under the $60, at $59. So we're going to go from dearest to cheapest, so make sure you stay to the end, like I said. But this is a Dimir Singularity deck, so all about milling your opponent. This is such a cool card. I was looking for a deck that was played around this, and I found this list. I think it went 5-0 in a recent event as well, which is on an MTG Adren. But that is just, shows that the deck can definitely win games. So the idea of this deck is using a combination of River Churn Monument, using the exhaust feature of this, which is tapping it, paying the 4 mana, any number of target players, each mill cards equal to the number of cards in the graveyard. Now, if you're playing the Rupture first, you destroy all the creatures, then a number of target players each mill half their library rounded down. So you get to mill half their library, and obviously they've been drawing cards as they've gone along. You then pay the 4 mana, tap this. GG's, they've got no cards left in their library. What a great combo deck this is. It is really, really fun to play. Like I said at the start, this is not budget on Arena, this is budget in paper. So when you're playing in paper, you get a lot more for your money because you're buying cards that, on Arena, rares, mythic rares, you've got to be spending the money or opening the packs or have a good wildcard selection. But if you do have these cards, give this deck a try. I've played it, as you can see, I crafted it, it's super fun. Now, like I said, the win con of this deck is using the Rupture and then the Monument. You also then have, what black does is lots of removal because you will need that to be able to get to your combo. 4 Deadly Cover-Up are in there. We've also got a couple of Virtue of Persistence that you can use for the Scorn, more removal, and then turns into a win con, which when you're putting stuff into graveyards, you can bring creatures back, which is, sometimes if you can't find the Monument, you can then do the Rupture and leave stuff in there if they've got a lot of creatures in there, and then start taking opponents' creatures as well. We've also got Monumentum Breaker, Monumentum? I'm thinking of the Monument. I just get my words marked up. Momentum Breaker. When it enters, each opponent sacrifices a creature vehicle of their choice. If they can't, they have to discard a card. Strategic Betrayal. It does have some cards in this deck that sort of go against stuff as well, because this is Exile Graveyard. But what it does is, when you're milling stuff into graveyard, some decks will really like that. So you can still mill everything out of your opponent's hand, get everything out of their deck, put it in there. If they're using the graveyard and it's a benefit to them, you then start playing your Strategic Betrayals, exiling creature, then getting rid of their graveyard as well. Tithing Blade, more removal, but it is a choice removal, so when this enters, they have to sack a creature, but it's of their choice. And if you can actually craft this with a creature of yours, we've got Demon Walls, we've got the Harvester is in there as well, which can get stuff from graveyards and create copies. Then we can, sort of get that crafted, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 1 life and gain 1 life. So a slow win con with that. Get a couple of these down and get them with your creatures. 2 of these, 2 life, 2 gain at a turn is still a nice, subpar win con in the deck. And Holy Annex, making card draw, we need to find what we need. You really do need to get the Monuments and the Singularity in there. You've got 3 and 3 of each, so that does really help with that extra bit of card draw as well. And the Simulacrum fetches a basic land, acts as a blocker, gets us to draw a card when it dies, and just does a job and fits in that 4 slot perfectly. Restless Reef is in there as our 4 of creature landers. We don't run too many creatures in the deck, just 9 in the deck. It's all about this combo of Rupture and Monument. You might have played against this already. It's a very good fun deck. Sideboard, they will be in the deck list. I'm not going to talk too much about the sideboards. We're just going to talk about much of the main decks, but more of the controlling aspect. And if you're playing against more graveyard decks where you might be helping them, you've got Leylines of the Voids in there. You can still mill your opponent. You've got Duresses, removal, negates to stop anything that's trying to stop what you're doing when you're playing against some control decks, whereas where this would sort of come into effect. So I feel like these can sort of help you in multiple matchups of decks into the meta. But this is the first deck, $59. Let's get on to the next one. So for $54, we're going to get a mono green Stompy deck. Now, I could have done mono green landfall and put a budgety deck out there, but the actual paper deck of the actual mono green landfall is pretty dear because a Bristly Bill in paper is worth a lot of money, and it runs 4 of them, and that literally would take it over the $60. It'd probably even take it over the $100 to be honest, just for those 4 cards. So I was looking around for a green deck, so I like doing all the different colours to give people a chance who just like playing certain types of archetypes and certain type of colours. And I found this green Stompy deck that works pretty well, to be honest. I saw a couple of different people that have played this deck with maybe 1 or 2 different versions. I've not tried it myself yet. I've just got a couple of crafts that I can do quite easily to give this, this deck a go. But it was putting up good results. I saw at least 3 or 4 on Untapped that were playing, some sort of version of this Stompy deck. And I feel like it's one that you could build for, just over the $50, which for a standard deck is super cheap. So I've seen some decks that are just like over $600-700 and stuff like that in standard, which is hideous. But these decks that I'm showing you today, like this mono green deck, can be competitive for you, and you won't have to have much money spent out, which is what the idea of these decks are. So the idea of this deck, it is a creature based deck, 24 creatures in there, just the 22 lands, because it's got a low CMC average of 2.1. It's basic forest, and then it just has the arm and get Raceway as a way to give a creature haste just by getting max speed, because you're doing a lot of attacking with this one. A little bit of ramp, Llanowar Elves, always in any green decks, because it's good to get some of your more powerful cards down a little bit earlier if you can, like the Trailblazer. This is a nice 4-2. Surak, a 4-3. This spell can't be countered. Trample, whenever creature you control or creature becomes a target of a spell or ability, you get to draw a card. You also then have a Scrap Shooter as well, as a 4-4 for 3 mana. With reach, so it helps against those flying decks. If the gift was promised, you get to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So you can gift your spell and give opponent a card. The other one at the top end is a couple of Ferox, Death Touch, Haste, Ward, Collect Evidence 4, and it's a 4-4. So coming straight down and attacking and killing anything it touches. That obviously doesn't have indestructibility. The rest of the creatures in there, Flourishing Bloom Green works very well when you're playing lots of forests, because this just gets bigger and can be played for its disguise, turn around and get you a couple of forests in there as well. And we've got Keen-Eyed Curator, 3-3 for 2 green mana. If you know what green does, it costs you lower mana and normally gets you more power and toughness. This is what green does. That's what green does in Magic. And this is another one. As long as there is 4 or more card types in there, though, it's going to get +4/+4 and trample. So potentially a 7/7 trampler for 2 mana. Potentially. Absolutely brilliant. We also then got some spells, a bit more rampage. We got Lumbering Worldbragging in there. When this enters or attacks, searching for a library of basic. Crew 4 in this, which is, not too hard to do in this deck. These could quite easily be 4 drops going down. We got the Axebane. We got Surak as well. Trailblazer. So very easy to get this online and start attacking in there. And a nice toughness of 4/4. Arcturus Charm. Just a single one of these. More one of the expensive cards. Multiple things that can be done with this as well, which is pretty good. Fight Tactics with Bushwhack, potential to find a land as well. Commune with Beavers. Look at the top 3 cards. Your library reveal an artifact, creature, or land card. We can search for that creature if we do. If we need a land, we might do. But for 1 mana, this is really good, and we've got a pretty good chance with 24 creatures of hitting that creature with that. So all in all, this is a very fun Stompy deck that can build up creatures to get them, bigger and lots of haste and lots of, turning creatures sideways, which is, if that's your type of deck, then this one's going to be good to you. Last creature that I forgot to mention about was Paw Patch Recruit. You can play offscreen, get 2 of these in there. Whenever a creature you control becomes target, spell or ability, and opponent controls, you get to put a 1/1 counter on that creature. So when, they're killing stuff and we've got multiple creatures on there, we can get other creatures bigger, which is nice. Sideboard, we had a few, situational cards that are in there, an extra couple of scrap shooters if we want to bring some more creatures in there. A Planeswalker, very cheap Planeswalker, Vivian Reed. This is nice. The -8 is brilliant. It starts off with 5 loyalty, so good card to potentially bring in against control decks or anything like that, and a good way to go through anything destroying artifacts, enchantments, creatures with flying. Situational card in Paw Patch, just really good utility card. And then we've got another couple of Keen Eyes, so we can go, a lot more heavy creatured if we want to, with Frenzied Baloth in there as well, and go a lot more aggressive low mana creatures where we might be playing more of the aggro decks, and then some of these will be better coming in than some of the, maybe some of the ramp cards where it might be a bit too slow. We can bring in these and just have more of a presence on the field. But this is Mono Stompy. Let's get on to the next deck. We then have a mono black skeleton list for $49. A lot of you might know, one of my favourite cards is Courts to the Lost. I love this aggressive card. Comes down, makes a skeleton. Skeleton's a good +1/0 and haste. And also colour, not a skeleton, but just works very well in a black aggro type of deck as well. Love this deck. It's only got 6 skeletons, which is why it's more of a mono black aggro type deck. It has the ability to play the Milner, which is a skeleton as well, and Case of the Stash, which puts a skeleton into play. So it does have a skeleton sub-theme in it with this going on, but a lot of other good cards in there. Now, some of you have seen this deck from me before. We spoke about Saboteur. I was umming and ahhing about it, but when I got to play a bit more, it is a card that needs to be dealt with, and your opponent has to discard a card to get rid of it normally as well. So 4/1, whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on target creature and opponent controls, but it's got Menace, it's great. Opponents turn 2 will always want to get rid of this. We then have Cecil, great turn 1 Death Touch play, and Tiny Bones. So a couple of Death Touches there, 2 of each. Goes on the aggressive theme of this. We have 8 1-drop creatures to come down and start the pressure on. Mono Black does removal very well, as we know. They're probably one of the best in the format for removal. So we're running 4 trajectories, 3 Feed the Swarms. It is sorcery, but still only 2 mana and helps us against enchantments, which is nice. Shoot the Sheriff is one of the more expensive cards as an uncommon. So in paper, this is only in there as a 2-of. Strategic Betrayal as well. I spoke about it if we're dealing with graveyard decks in the previous deck. This deck is going to be perfect for us to actually deal with those decks and get rid of anything they might be recurring back. So, very good in this deck. The last card to talk about in this one is Fall as Faithful. I was surprised to see this in the deck because, some people say it's not that good, but when this creature does destroy up to 1 target creature, and that creature wasn't dealt damage this turn, its controllers draws 2 cards. I've actually used this more on myself to draw the 2 cards than I've actually used it on opponents. So I feel like sometimes it's very good, maybe when you're putting down your suspected skeleton, getting rid of it and stuff like that. And it's just a nice bit of extra card draw. So it helps you get what you want, but this is a very low costing, 1.8 average here for the, you can see the plethora of 2-drops there. There's a lot of them. Now the land base is very simple as well. 20 basic swamps, 2 conduit pylons because you can surveil one with this, can help find what you want is in there as a couple of. I've never seen this really. I've never used it myself in a standard deck, so I was intrigued to see how good it would be in it. Turns out sometimes it's pretty useful, so I can understand why it's in there as a couple of. And then a single Soulstone Sanctuary that is, one of the, I think it's one off the top of my head, is one of the more expensive cards in the deck as well. So sideboard for this one, going into the control and removal. That's what it's all about. Duresses, Feed the Cycle, forage or pay 1, which is fine for us to do. Final Vengeance as well. Get to the exile in there. We have to sack a creature to do this, but we can sack Forsaken Milner and just get that back as well. So we do have, ways to get around that and not actually cost us too much. We then have some uncounterable stuff like Long Goodbye, and then 0 Point Ballad as a couple of a nice cheap rare to put into the sideboard that could be used as a mass sweeper potentially for the deck as well. So I feel like, this is a pretty decent sideboard coming in, situational removal that can be swapped around for something that we may already have in the deck, bringing in some instant speed stuff, maybe getting rid of trajectory and stuff like that. But Mono Black Aggro, very fun deck. I see I've crafted this one. I do enjoy playing this, and yeah, definitely give this one a go. It's cool fun. 2 decks to go, and if you're still here, you're an absolute legend. We now have a mono red deck, and of course we had to put a mono red deck in there. Now, it's pretty hard to put the full-on mono red aggro deck in there because it's actually not that cheap. It actually is quite expensive, but we can still get away with a version of the Callous Cell Sword type of deck using Burn Together, not running any of the Black Swarms to play that. We're just using it for Burn Together, and that's all we're using this for. You've probably seen this deck a lot, but what you might not have seen of the new edition is adding in Bygone Colossus. Now, this has Warp 3, so you may cast this card from your hand for its Warp cost and exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So if you cast it for that, now we do have ways and means to do stuff. We can use it as target creature card deals damage equal to power to any other target. So you can warp this in and then sack and do 9 damage. What we can also do as well is add in a full bore on this for 1 mana, give it +3/+2 to end a turn. If that creature was cast for its warp cost, it also gains trample and haste, so we can actually give it trample and haste using that 1 mana, and then smashing in for a 9 trampler, and then just using the Callous to give it a bit of a fling effect as well. So that is the new addition to this deck, which I find very good. A lot of you will know about this deck already. You got your Slick Shots, your Embers, all the simple, stuff that is usually in this deck, and lots of spells to make stuff bigger so it gets ready for the fling effect, turn inside out. Spoke about full bore. We've got Wild Ride as well. Demonic Ruckus is in there. +1/1 Menace and Trample helps get stuff over of all the little blockers and all the little token decks that might be out there. Just generally good stuff to build up. And then it also gives more effect to Burn Together. But this is an absolute smashing card. When I saw a few decks playing this and, was getting some nice results, I just thought, what a cool idea. And this was a great thing to add in there. I'd never have thought that myself. I wouldn't be looking at 9 mana stuff, even though it's the warp. But some people, what they find is brilliant in Magic. And this, for $44, is a very, very effective deck. Sideboard. Like I said with all these, just added in cards that I think will be good. Removal, Abrade, very good, destroys artifacts, 3 damage to creatures. Obliterating Bolt uses exile as well, so that can be very handy. A Ruinous Rampage, 3 of these, 3 damage to each opponent, and exiling all artifacts, because we know there's a big artifact deck out there, and Ruinous Rampage is brilliant against those Simulacrum decks and everything like that. So exiling all those artifacts is very, very, very helpful, and a great sideboard card against that for the reg. And then just a couple of other cards, situational cards, Cut Propulsion as well, Vengeful Possession, gaining control of a target creature when they're just using potentially 1 big beater or 2 big beaters in the deck. You're taking them and then gaining haste and attacking, which is brilliant. And then what's good about that? You can sacrifice it to Burn Together and they just won't get it back, and then just fling and do more damage as well. So this deck has a lot of tricks up its sleeve. Pretty cool for mono red, but let's get on to the last deck. So for just over $40, $41 is Old Faithful Mono White. A version of Mono White that has been putting in some nice results. Mono White, super consistent, very good. As you will know on the ladder, it's just a very good deck. Don't need to say too much about this unless you're a new player. This is all about gaining life, attacking, and getting so big on life gain that your opponents just basically give up hope. That's basically what it is. It can do a turn 3 massive attack if you've got your ley line in your opening hand. Then you need the +7 life, which is easy. If you've got hinterlands, a couple of these that are leaning guard, all of a sudden the life gain is triggering straight away. Turn 2 and 3, you got that +2 and you're attacking big straight away. Turn 3 comes down with a Linden. It's just GG's. They're just so big. Best removal, one of the best removal cards in Standard, Sheltered by Ghost. Surprised this one has never been talked about to be bad. I've heard a few whispers about that. I mean, I just don't think so. I just think it's a really good card, and I don't want to see it banned at all. But I have heard a lot of rumblings about people complaining about this card. But for a turn 2, turn 3 play, it's just super strong. If you're putting it on your Ajani's, making that harder to beat, and this with these coming into play, turn 2, bang, gaining life straight away, and all of a sudden it's getting a lifelink and you're hitting with that on there. It's massive. This deck is very hard to beat sometimes. It can be beaten, obviously, but mono red deck's nightmare. And if this just gets like the whimpering of that kind of quick start that it gets, and then mono red just quits on the spot against this. I do love this deck. Sideboard, we've just got lots of removal, Elsbeth Smites, Rest in Peace to help against the graveyard decks, a few more banishings, Seam Rip for more removal, Devout Decree for exile in black or red decks or anything like that. Just basically loads more removal. Requisition Raid is a card that I love, sometimes in the main decks in best of 1, but obviously these are all made for paper, so they're best of 3, and this is just a good card come in. Spree is destroy artifact enchantments or put a 1/1 counter on all these creatures. And we have a lot of creatures. We have 30, so we're going against Rafts. Really cool. Deal with them. Come back fighting. Then they've just got to chip away at your massive amount of life. Mono white is very good, aggressive, and definitely a deck you can go up the ladder with as well. So if you just want to play this on Arena, this is a very, very good deck choice. But that's been 5 decks for you today, all under $60 with sideboards. Let me know what you think of all these decks, and if you're going to build any of them paper, or if you play them on Arena first, come back and let me know how they play for you. I hope they play really well for you, and you get that little bit of luck on Arena that we all need when playing. But yeah, take care of business with these decks, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. So please let me know down in the comments below. If you want to support the video, you can like it for free if you've enjoyed it and found it helpful and knowledgeable for yourselves. And if you're still here at the end, you're an absolute legend. Check out my Patreon if you want. You get all these deck lists early and everything like that over there, and you can talk about more stuff about your decks, and if you want me to build decks for you and stuff like that on certain different levels. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go and take a butcher's at that over there as well. But thanks for watching today's video. You lot take care, and I'll see you on the next one.